Hello Virgo friends, I'm Annie Botticelli and welcome to my Virgo October 2021 Astrology Must Knows. Definitely go to anniehelpsyou.com so you don't miss any of the free goodies I make for you each month. If you forget that website address by the time the video is over, you can click on the More button, the little arrow underneath the video, and look at the notes underneath the video there. If you are a Virgo placement, that is your sun or your moon or your rising or any other Virgo placement, this is for you. This is part of your astrological picture if you have any Virgo placements. If you're a late degree Virgo placement, so if your birthday is around September 11th through the rest of the sign, or 20 to 29 degrees, and the later in the month of September and the later in degree, the more this is true, I highly recommend you also additionally listen to my Libra reports, because you late degree cuspy people have a more complex read and you'll need to get information from the Virgo side and the Libra side to get your full storyline. Okay, so what is going on this month? So much is going on. I'm calling the theme of this month the Big Wake Up and Eclipse Rumblings. We've got eclipses in November and December, and we are entering eclipse season, which starts 4 to 6 weeks before the eclipse, the first eclipse. Starting that at the beginning of October. So the changes that have been in process since around March 2020, we all know what that timeline corresponded with. We're seeing some final conclusions of storylines for yourself in the world that are coming to a next stage of getting wrapped up at this time, and hints as to what that's going to look like, and pieces of information and events are going to start coming in this month. Okay, so our little rest from when we were integrating the eclipse energies from May and June is over, and we're starting to ease into the big life-changing information and events that are coming in. So you might get some of that this month. The next thing is this big wake up. So Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn, and Mercury are all going to turn direct this month. They're waking up. When we have a planet in retrograde, it's kind of like it's asleep, or it's working on the inner levels, or working where it's lesser seen. But now all of these planets and their storylines, planets I always think of as people. They have personalities, and in the signs they're in, it's like the mood they're in, or the kinds of things that they do, you know. And so all of those things in our chart, in our being, in our world are going to start waking up, and things that had been dormant or had fizzled out or kind of went into the backdrop at earlier times this year are going to be starting to flow full force again in major ways. So if you've been wondering what the heck happened to a project or something you were working on, don't be surprised to start to hear from people like, hey, let's talk about that project. Or if you feel intuitively inclined to get back in touch or follow up, probably things will start to come to life in a very big way now. It's very exciting. We've got two distinct periods of time this month, the retrograde energies that are the earlier time, and then as the month goes on past the 18th of October and then in towards November, we're building into the direct energies and including a golden moment, one of the best launch periods of the whole year. And I'll talk more about that. I actually have a sneak peek into some energies of November and December, which we'll do in a segment after we do a bunch of Virgo specific things. But it is important to know that October is split in how you use the energy, the types of things that are coming in, the types of, you know, like for instance, clarity is very difficult to come by in a retrograde cycle. So the earlier part of October is still kind of like things are cast into confusion, whereas towards the ends of the month into November, more clarity comes. Impetus and drive and certainty about a direction, a little bit harder to come by in the earlier part of the month, but then towards the end of the month into November, you start having the zest and that movement back. And there are lots of other things, which I will outline. I actually have a little list for you of how to use the first part of the month and how to use the second part of the month. So we'll go into that later, but I just wanted to let you know that we are going to cover that. You'll want to stay tuned for it. Okay. So let's talk about what's going on for Virgo specifically, a major must-knows. You're still having lots of emphasis on your second house of money and finances. Because of the retrograde energies, that tends to bring up questions and tends to bring things up from the past. So you're assessing things having to do with your finances, your income, your sustainability. Many people will be asking those type of questions, and those are front and center in the world for very many reasons, and you might have that feel very personal to you. There might be climate, weather-related questions that you're asking about how you're making your money and how you want to make your money in the future. So this is a really good time to do an assessment of where you've been, where you're at, and where you want to go. It might not be exactly the best time to make decisions on that information, But that time is coming soon, which we'll talk about, okay? So now is the time to ask the questions. This is also a time to ask questions about how you interact with other people, your mode of communication. Is the way that you're communicating with people getting you what you want and getting other people to get what they want? And do you have to make changes there? These types of questions. There are also some very big questions coming up as it relates to your work and the sustainability for your health based on how you are working. And fortunately for Virgos, this is very exciting that you're in a phase of time where these outer planets, Saturn and Jupiter, which are two of the big hitters that are waking up now, are making a beautiful aspect to your midheaven. The midheaven in the chart rules our work in the world, our purpose in the world. For those of you who don't need jobs or employment or who are retired, this rules just kind of your place out in the world, your gifts, what you're bringing to the world, what you're sharing. This also rules your father figures, becoming an authority figure on your own, how you relate to your own authority, your inner authority, outer authority. And this is in a cycle of massive change, partly because the North Node, transiting North Node, has been here in this place. Okay, so you've had a little bit longer to ask the questions. What's your highest expression? What are you supposed to be doing in this lifetime? What's the karma that's keeping you from your highest expression? All of those things are coming up very strongly now. And again, you might not exactly have the answers, but towards the end of October and into November and December, more answers should be coming to you as this cycle ends out. Okay, and you might be ready to make some big moves, some big decisions, and some big events might come to you in that arena. So that's one thing that's happening in that area. The next thing that's happening is that Saturn and Jupiter are trining. The most favorable aspect in all of astrology are making this trine aspect to your midheaven, okay? And this is staggered for you all, and it's also more intense for some of you at different times compared to others, but it's a general storyline of enhancement in your work and also like your perfect vocation and your perfect schedule. People ask questions about their employment that cause them to come up with certain experiences. Okay, so for instance, many people ask the question, I have to make this certain amount of money, so I have to have a job that makes this certain amount of money, and then they look for a job that makes that certain amount of money. They're not asking the question, is that type of job going to be sustainable for my health? And your health is very key here because the 6th house where this is going on is your health house and it's your daily experience house. Is that job that you want to get so much? What is your life going to be like when you have that job? Is that what you're wanting? Is that going to be sustainable for you in the long run? And for Virgos right now, it's very, very critical for you to start asking some different questions. Start asking some questions. What type of schedule do you need in order to be able to be healthy and enjoy the things that you have and enjoy the things that you're hoping that the money that comes from your job will help you to create or sustain? Okay? And then as you ask those questions, I mean, I understand that at certain points in different people's lives, you just have to take what is available to you for that moment, right? You need to put food on the table, you need to, take care of the basics, and that, of course, you have to do. But what's happening now with Uranus transiting your 9th house, it's starting to spark you into different ways of seeing things and asking questions that are different. And those questions that you ask are going to help you create different experiences. So I have a very good buddy who I adore. He's a comedian as his work, which is amazing. He does other things too, but he's hilarious. And we were just having a conversation. He has a bunch of Virgo energy. Okay, that's why I'm thinking about this. But we were just talking a couple of days ago, and he's like, Annie, I'm in this phase of my life where I'm just seeing and calling out BS like crazy, which is really helpful for being a comedian, right? Because we're looking at life and being like, wow, how ridiculous and crazy are these things? But I see this Uranus in the 9th house, and I'm thinking everybody, all the Virgo placements are having this like, wow, you're waking up to look at things in a different way. You're waking up to look at what you're doing in a different way, what life is doing, what the stories are doing, and things that might have been more cemented or more fixed, where you're kind of like, I'm doing this and I'm moving along in this way and this is the way things are done and this is the way I'm doing things. It's like snapping and crackling and popping your ways of looking at things, offering new and fresh insights that are changing. And for some people, you might feel like it's a little bit unstable, like you're changing the things that you believe rapidly, and it might seem like there's instability there because Uranus, the keynote is instability. But it's cracking you out of the things that are not working for you, but anything that has value, you'll come back to it and you'll hold it and you'll keep it. You're just kind of turning the stone over to look at the different sides of reality. It's a very exciting time for Virgos. And a lot of this is centered around your health, and a lot of this is centered around your work. Okay, let's see what else I wanted to talk about there. Something else that's important to know is that something that's gone on June, July, August, September, and now in October is more salty aspects than sweet ones. If you want to have my list of all the salty aspects, all the sweet ones, the dates they happen, what they are, and what you can expect from them delivered into your inbox 1 month early, then go to anniehelpsyou.com and sign up for my free email newsletter. I don't send out very many emails, so you won't get emails every day. I don't like to get emails every day when I sign up for something, so I don't do that to other people. But everything that I send has things that I've created for you to help you make the most of the energies and understand what's going on and utilize the energies in the best way. So included in that is my sweet and salty list. Okay, so we have had, and we will have in October, more annoying aspects than we'll have sweet ones. And you will feel that, but you don't have to let that be like a shroud of concern for you. Most of these are just little bumps that tend to pass really quickly. They're aspects with inner planets that are like, they feel really dramatic and then they pass. They feel really annoying and then they pass. But when that's happening in more frequency compared to the sweet harmonious ones, we do feel it. But if you can reframe how you're looking at this, like, okay, well, maybe when I bump the salt container that has chunks of salt, when you shake it, it shakes it loose. And that's kind of how to view these erratic transits in the cosmos that are beaming down erratic, jolts to us. It's like, okay, maybe I can see something differently. Maybe I can do something differently. And maybe that will actually revitalize my life. And maybe I don't have to be afraid of it. And maybe it's annoying, but maybe it will come to a good purpose. Okay, so you can kind of think of these little jolts this way. We will have a reprieve in November from the more annoying aspects compared to sweet ones. And actually, you probably heard me refer to November quite a few times with some excitement that it is one of my favorite months of the whole year. The aspects are, are pretty notable, and we definitely have a golden period of really monumental importance. And so we're gearing up to that. So October is very much about doing the research, wrapping up the loose ends, clearing the old decks to make new make room for the new things, and also make ready the big things that you want to do. Your launching pad is getting really clear, and your springboards are getting really clear for you to launch into the next phase. And that launch time is coming very soon. Okay, let's see what else I wanted to talk about for you. You are still continuing to go through this long-term phase of having Chiron work on your relationships. So very deep wounds that you've had that you might have busied yourself to cover, or that you might have kept your heart closed because you didn't want to get hurt. Those kind of things are still coming up and can rub you raw in certain areas, like rubbing raw a cut on you, okay? This is happening at the same time as all of this other stuff is happening, but I wanted to mention it because when we're in a retrograde phase, and when we're in a phase that's very focused on relationships, like now when we have all these energies in Libra and we have all of these energies in Scorpio, it's really, really helpful to look at things in your relationships that aren't quite right or aren't quite where you want them to be, and look to see what healing you can do on your end. There's something that is so powerful and so simple that's called the Ho'oponopono. You can look it up, Ho'oponopono. If you put anything like that in a search, it's known as a Hawaiian forgiveness prayer, but it actually precedes the people who populated the Hawaiian Islands. It's like more of like a Polynesian forgiveness prayer. And anyone can do it. It doesn't cost any money. And especially if you do it for moon cycle, I've, combined astrology with these types of practices and gotten really great results. anything that requires forgiveness of yourself or other people is just kind of being worked on in the backdrop, and it can be a key to unleashing your deeper intimacy and your greater financial stability and your greater emotional and psychological fulfillment. Okay, so I wanted to mention that must know as well. All right, so now let's talk about this promised timeline and your list of ways to best use the earlier part of October and the ways to best use the time that moves into the end of October into November. Okay, so to understand the theme, the big wake up for October 2021, it's easier, I think, to see it in a visual context and also to understand October compared to November and December, and what we've got going on in this cluster of time will help you to better understand the energy of this month. All right, so the first thing of note that we've got going on is that these outer planets are waking up. So Pluto on October 6th, Saturn on the 11th, Jupiter on the 18th, and then we've got Mercury also waking up. This is an inner planet, but we've still been in this Mercury retrograde period, since September. So the energy for the first half or so of the month is very much retrograde, okay? And then every day, the 19th, 20th, 21st, every day we march into October, later in the month, these energies that just woke up start to get stronger, all right? So by the time we're at November 3rd, Mercury retrograde is clear, and we enter this golden period of the 3rd through the 17th before the Venus shadow period starts. Venus shadow starts November 18th, gets stronger as the month of November goes on. Venus goes retrograde on December 19th. Okay, so you can see this time between November 3rd and the 17th is this golden opening where these planets have gained a lot of momentum. Mercury is completely strong. Venus has not yet started to slip. So now that we understand this, we'll get back to some of these other pieces here. Let's talk about the retro energies and direct energies and how you use them differently. So basically, the first half of October, we'll say through, of course, the 18th, because that's when everything goes direct. It's very strong in this, and this lingers throughout October, but it starts to get lighter and lighter as the month goes on, and as the month goes on, it gets more into these energies. And then the 3rd through the 17th of November is really, really strong with this energy, okay? So in retrograde time, we want to deal with what comes up more rather than trying to do future planning or, think too much ahead. We want to clear out clutter in any area of our lives, our health, our relationships, our houses, our desk. We want to leave things unscheduled because last minute magic can show up, and the more space you have to receive it, the better. This is a fantastic time for research, not as much the big launches and decisions and agreements and all of this stuff, unless it's unavoidable, but researching these things and making, your pros and cons list, getting information so that you can strike when the iron's hot. The retro time, so, it's basically all of October, but especially through around the 18th. We want to wrap up loose ends and finish old projects. Also, retrogrades are known for confusion, where you can't see that far ahead. You're not sure about what you want to do with any of these kind of things, and if you know that that's happening, then it's okay because you know that it's likely going to clear. It's a time to be in the moment, and it's a time to honor the flow and not force anything. Now, as we get later in October, you'll start to feel the clarity coming back, especially once we get into November, the zest and ideas for new projects, things like big launches, like getting your book out, your creative babies of any sort, your big decisions, your agreements, your paperwork, your investing, your moves, anything like that, future planning. And that back to push and initiate mode, away from the don't force mode, is another important change that starts to evolve as October goes on. And the more you can do these things in this November 3rd through 17th, you'll have all of the oomph of the direct motion. And I always liken this time to when the tide is going out. Retrograde is like when the tide is going in. If you try to push a message in a bottle out on the shore, to go out to the sea, it's probably going to come bobbing right back to you. That's why these things are better indicated in the retrograde time. But as we move into the direct time, it's time to put your boat afloat, to have the action of the tides going out, to put your bottle out to sea, to put all of your energy out there, because you have oomph. Now, as we get into the 18th, the tides from the Venus perspective start slowly rolling in, okay? But there is quite a bit of what I call usable energy for the rest of November. And I'm just giving you this little sneak peek to understand this, even though we're talking about October, because October is more in this retrograde mode. And then November is more in this direct mode, you see? So this will help you to better guide your actions in October to understand the energies of November more. But you will have some usable energy for the rest of November. You just have to use it with caution. And if you want to get a sneak peek about this, we'll talk about this more in the November report. But look for Annie Botticelli Venus Retrograde. I have a whole Venus and retrograde blog series. I've got a really great detailed video. And also my book, Planetology, How to Align with the Natural Rhythms of the Universe, has a very big section on these Venus retrograde energies. Okay, so now back to this energy in October. We also have at the beginning of the month, eclipse season is beginning, okay? Because the first eclipse is November 19th, but eclipse season starts around 4 to 6 weeks before the actual eclipse. So that places us right back here at the beginning of October. Okay, so besides this big wake up for these outer planets and Mercury, we've got eclipse season beginning. So, those life-changing pieces of information, those life-changing experiences, those very big goodbyes, those very big hellos. And this is a very big wrap up, because this season holds the last eclipse in the Sagittarius Gemini cycle. So what we're wrapping up here, and this energy is starting to make itself manifest in October, which is why we're talking about it now. The Sagittarius Gemini eclipse cycle has been in effect since around March 2020. And everybody remembers that month will go down in infamy when the world shut down. So things wrapping up at this time. Also, if you want to have some context, you can think back. So basically it was, the eclipse cycle was from May 2020, but again, the 4 to 6 week period started us in March, through around January of 2022. Okay, so we're here in October, we're starting to get the pieces falling together of closing out this cycle. If you want to have context as to when the last time that cycle happened, the Sagittarius Gemini eclipse cycle, it was around 2010 to 2012. So you might see some similar storylines that came up at that time. Now what we're starting in this new cycle is the Taurus Scorpio eclipse cycle. And of course, we'll go into way more details about this in the November and December reports when the actual eclipses occur, but it's important for you to know these things now, because the eclipse season starts in early October. So think back to the end of 2002 and to like through 2003, and then the second half of 2012 to early 2014. Then we've got now August 2021 through the end of 2023. And the reason why we have August here is because we do start to see a few months even before the eclipse cycle begins that sometimes little hints will come in. So that's very, very sensitive, might be harder to see that energy. So we'll just put it back to October 2021 through the end of 2023 is the Taurus Scorpio cycle. So the things that are coming in now are going to really be big players through the end of 2023. And we'll go into details about exactly where that hits in your chart in the November and December reports. For our purposes for October, just know that it's a big wrap up of the old eclipse cycle and the big beginning of the new eclipse cycle as this eclipse season starts this month. Okay, so I've given you lots of information to help you make the most of October 2021 and beyond. If you would like even more information, definitely go to anniehelpsyou.com. That is the interface for all of the things that I do for you each month, the connection to my podcasts and my Pinterest and my school and my blogs and all of that you can find there. If you would like to be an astrologer as your profession or just to do it to help your friends and family and yourself, you will love my Becoming a Professional Astrologer Mastery course. If you think I put a lot of details into these monthly reports, month after month, year after year, you should see what goes on, the comprehensive nature of that course, which you can see at lumelife.com, Lume life.com. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.